Howdy, I wanted to talk about Amerzone The Explorer's Legacy. Now, this is an old school point and click puzzle game from 1999. Now, I never played the original one. To be honest, I don't recall ever hearing about this. And I was curious to check it out and experience it for the first time. So this is a remake, sort of slash reimagining of the original game. It's kind of similar, I believe, to what Myst did when they released Myst a couple years ago, and then Riven, and they kind of redid that. It's a similar type of thing. They, redid the entire game and made it in a modern form with graphics and the way it's told and all that. And I played it on PS5. Now, for a point and click, usually, you use the mouse and there's an arrow and you click on the arrow and the character walks for you. And that hasn't changed. That's still the core of the gameplay here. But playing on PS5 with a controller, it actually kind of worked. I'm used to using an analog stick to move the character around, and in this instance, you're using an analog stick to basically move a cursor of sorts around to tell the character where to walk, what to interact with, and that sort of stuff. And it was weird at first. First I felt like I was being held back from walking, but then the more I played, the more I got used to it, and I was totally fine with it by the end of the game. I got used to moving around as such. It didn't throw me off. It didn't feel like the equilibrium was off or anything like that. I just became naturally used to it. Now, this game has two sets of difficulty modes. And from what I recall, like remakes of other games that I played, they only have, there was no difficulty. It wasn't a thing. You just got the game. You have to use the walkthrough to get through it. And so I was surprised to see difficulty modes in this game. There was only two. One was more of an adventure mode, and one was more of an explorer mode. And so if you wanted to go the original way, that option was there as a difficulty. But if you wanted to do something a little bit easier, then you go for that difficulty, which is what I chose. I ended up choosing the easier difficulty, and I'm just saying that out front. That's my experience of the game, is through that lens. And I'm kind of glad that I did, because I love these puzzle style of games. And I do enjoy going through walkthroughs, even if I walk through the entire experience. But I was just curious to see, can I get through it on the easier difficulty? And for the most part, I was able to get through it mostly on the easier difficulty. And from the experience I played, one of my favorite features was you would be able to press a button, I think it was triangle, and it would show everything on the screen that you can interact with. Because knowing me, I would easily miss like 2 or 3 of the most important items I need to continue the game, and I'd get completely stuck. But by having that feature, it would show me everything that I can just look at, I can grab, I can read, or an item, and it would have different icons kind of tell me what kind of item it was. And that was good for me because I was able to find the items and tools I needed to solve the puzzles, but I made sure that I mostly was able to grab all the story lore. Because again, these kind of games, they love having their lore in documents. That was part of the deal that you got playing these games. Is a lot of reading if you want to know the lore. And this definitely had that for sure. But it was cool to see all these notes and stuff you could collect as you go and be able to read them. In addition to that, though, they did have full CG cutscenes at certain moments. There would be characters in the game you would talk to, like fully modernized CG characters. And they would have, again, like a scene describing, there's a journal you pick up, and periodically you'd initiate a cutscene after you found a new edition of this journal or a new page. There was variety there in how the story was told a little bit, even though it's still mostly reading, but there was a lot of different stuff. A lot of it was visual as well. And the puzzles themselves weren't too bad. Again, I played it on easier difficulty. So whenever I did get stuck and was trying to figure out what to do, and probably the old school mode, you'd have to go look up a walkthrough and figure out how to do it. But this game has this journal where it keeps track of all the things you need to do, the items you have, the lore and all the pages you collect, but it also will give you hints. And it was nice that it would give you 2 to 3 hints. You know, you would hit one and then get some time before you get another hint. But having that was nice because I felt like I never had to fully X out the game to figure out how to do something or anything like that. You could play this game not having to worry about that issue because the game does a very good job of providing all the resources you need. So even if you get stuck, the game will eventually help you out and kind of tell you what you need to do if you really need that. And that's something I appreciated. Again, this was in the mode I played. I feel like some of these features might not be there in the traditional mode. So I'm curious to see how that would go. Now, the game itself it's not super long, but it's a decent size length. You know, I beat it in probably like 5 or 6 hours or so. You go to different environments. You'll be in one environment for a while, have to complete a few tasks. Then you'll eventually move your way to a different environment. And as you're going through the environment, you meet different characters. The tasks you have to do are kind of varied for the most part. There's a couple things that are similar, but they're mostly varied. And it's interesting to see where the story goes once you get to the end of it. I will say, I think this game looks really good. I've seen screenshots of the original 1999 game, and at the time, the graphics looked, I guess, like pretty solid for a PC game. But I thought, at least on the PS5, it looked really good. And, you know, there's been other games I've played that have looked good, but as a smaller game, you know, I would see textures and all that, like, hop in sometimes and things of that sort. But I didn't see any of that here. There were no, like, texture pop-ins or anything. Everything was already there. As I was moving between each screen, it felt super smooth. There felt like there was no lag or, you know, assets like trying to catch up to me as I was moving. And so that kind of helped with me getting used to the navigation and getting used to pointing and walking, because the character would walk himself in spots. There was a few moments where the character would take over and you wouldn't even control the character and it would just walk on its own. So I would recommend this game, especially for people who have never tried this type of genre before. It's a good intro genre, honestly. With the easier difficulty, you could try it out and see how you feel, and if you like it, you can play Myst and try that out. You know, sometimes games like these are hard to jump into because some of them do not hold your hand and get super complicated, and most of the time you don't know how hard it is until you're already in it, so you might not be fully prepared and get frustrated quick. But this game is a great way to ease you into it. It helps you out a lot. It looks visually good. It doesn't overstay its welcome too much, and it has a nice bit of lore building. I hope more games like this get remade in this style and get treated as well as this one has. You could tell a lot of the love and care the developers had into not just remaking it, but setting it up for modern gaming.